morning. In exactly 48 hours, the United States and Iran are scheduled to sign a historic regional peace deal in Switzerland.
Right.
So why, at this very moment, are ballistic missiles lighting up the sky over American military bases in the Middle East?
It's a striking contradiction.
It really is. Welcome to today's Intelligence Brief. You are listening to a special analysis of global events, brought to you with an absolute commitment to factual accuracy and objective reporting. Today's deep dive is sponsored by ProWigger AI and is generated by Stylo News, which is an advanced AI-powered news application.
And before we examine the facts on the ground, it is vital to understand the technology that's actually powering our analysis today.
Right, the Stylo system.
Exactly. So Stylo News is the consumer version of Stylo Intel Aux. And that is a software platform originally designed purely for enterprise operations. I mean, we're talking systems utilized across government, military, and international business sectors.
So what this means for you, the listener, is that you have unique access to an analytical tool specifically engineered to support global decision makers. You are getting the exact same unvarnished data streams they are.
Precisely. And today, we are pointing that tool at a highly volatile environment for a special 2-week analysis. Our focus is the Middle East Crisis Update, recorded on the 17th of June, 2026.
Yes. And as we proceed, we must explicitly state our neutrality mandate. The intelligence we are about to discuss contains politically charged content, violent conflicts, and, frankly, widely varying international viewpoints.
Very widely varying.
Right. We do not take sides. We do not endorse any specific political or military actions. Our mandate is strictly to impartially report the facts, outline the different courses of action, and examine the perspectives found in the original source material. We are here to provide clarity, not to generate fear.
Well said. To map out this crisis, we have established 3 interconnected lines of analysis for this deep dive. And it's important to note these are not just isolated tactical events.
No, they're not.
They are strategic challenges fundamentally affecting global markets, energy security, and international diplomacy. So, line of analysis number 1 examines Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis.
The proxy network.
Right. The core question is, can these groups preserve their military capabilities and regime stability while simultaneously imposing economic and military costs on their adversaries?
Right. And then line of analysis number 2 focuses on the United States and its regional partners. Basically, can they effectively degrade Iran's capabilities and restore deterrence to encourage meaningful diplomacy?
Exactly. And line of analysis number 3 looks at Israel. Can Israel protect its population while shaping the conditions for a sustainable peace arrangement?
Okay, let's unpack this. We need to begin by looking at the broader diplomatic umbrella currently trying to cover this entire region, specifically the relationship between the United States and Iran.
Right, because the contrast is stark.
It's unbelievable. I'm looking at the intelligence feeds, and the facts on the ground seem to directly contradict the diplomatic papers being drafted. U.S. President Donald Trump is nearing a regional peace deal with Iran. A Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, is scheduled to be signed on June 19, 2026, in Switzerland.
Just 2 days from now.
Yes. Yet, in the exact same 24-hour window, we are seeing a massive cycle of military retaliation.
What's fascinating here is how the United States and Iran are both attempting to execute a dual course of action. I mean, historically, nations choose between kinetic military force or diplomacy.
Right. It's usually one or the other.
But here, both sides are applying direct military force to degrade the other's capabilities while concurrently pushing a diplomatic memorandum to the finish line.
Well, let's look at the timeline. Recently, a U.S. Apache helicopter was down near the Strait of Hormuz. Following that incident, President Trump authorized direct kinetic military strikes on Iranian military sites.
And the response was immediate.
It was. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The IRGC fired missiles at U.S. military bases across the region. They specifically claimed to target installations in Bahrain, Kuwait, and the Muwafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan.
Right, because deterrence relies on clear signaling. When a military base is struck while drafting a peace treaty, it is basically an attempt to define the baseline of that treaty.
But I am trying to square this circle. I mean, how do pilots, commanders, and air defense operators function in an environment where they are actively exchanging missile fire, knowing full well their respective heads of state are preparing to shake hands in Europe?
It's a paradox.
It is. It is like two massive corporations locking each other in brutal, scorched earth litigation right up until the final hour of a corporate merger. purely to establish maximum leverage before the ink dries.
That's a great analogy. From the Iranian perspective, firing missiles at bases in Jordan and Kuwait projects internal strength. It ensures the regime does not look weak or desperate heading into the Switzerland signing.
And for the U.S.,
From the U.S. perspective, striking Iranian sites establishes a firm boundary. It's sending a message that the impending peace deal does not grant immunity for downing American aircraft.
so the strikes themselves are part of the negotiation.
Precisely.
But what about the nations caught in the crossfire? The Gulf Cooperation Council, or GCC, nations are experiencing severely degraded security confidence. Their sovereign airspace is essentially functioning as a message board for U.S. and Iranian ordnance.
Yeah, that cannot be sustainable for regional stability.
It isn't. And that leads us directly into how Iran manages to project power without relying solely on direct state-to-state missile exchanges. They utilize a strategy of indirect projection.
Right. Which brings us to our first line of analysis, Iran's regional proxy network.
Yes. If the U.S. and Iran are the parent corporations at the negotiating table, we have to look at the subsidiaries doing the actual fighting. The most critical geographic choke point for this activity right now is the Strait of Hormuz.
Absolutely. The economic mechanics there are crucial. The Strait of Hormuz is the artery for a massive percentage of the world oil.
And despite the impending diplomatic MU, intelligence indicates the IRGC continues to launch drones nightly at commercial shipping vessels, and U.S. forces are actively intercepting them.
Nightly drone launches.
Yes. But here's the data point that stands out to me. Despite this high-threat environment, a monthly record of 14 commercial ships passed through the strait on June 16 alone.
Wow, 14.
Right. Why risk a multi-million-dollar container ship and its crew in a drone shooting gallery?
Well, it comes down to the actuarial math governing global supply chains. Maritime operators are running a constant risk versus reward calculation. The fuel and time costs of rerouting a global shipping fleet all the way around the Cape of Good Hope are astronomical.
So it's a financial calculation.
Oh, exactly. Those 14 ships indicate that shipping companies calculate the U.S. naval interception umbrella is currently robust enough to justify the risk. The economic necessity simply outweighs the military threat, provided the U.S. continues to shoulder the burden of air defense.
But the threat matrix changes entirely when we pivot south to Yemen. In Yemen, the internationally recognized government is fundamentally weak. We have fresh reports of protests over collapsing basic services in cities like Aden, Sayun, and Tarim.
And the government response hasn't been peaceful.
No, government forces are using live fire to disperse crowds. So, into this power vacuum steps the Houthi militia. They have maintained a total ban on Israeli-linked shipping and are actively threatening the Bab al-Mandeb corridor.
Right, and there are fresh intelligence reports of a skiff attack on a container ship just 14 nautical miles off Yemen's southern coast.
To understand the stakes for you, the listener, we have to look at the geography here. The Bab al-Mandeb Strait is a geographic bottleneck barely 18 miles wide.
18 miles, that's incredibly narrow.
It is, and nearly 10% of total global seaborne oil passes through it. By threatening this corridor, the Houthis are successfully imposing immense economic costs on the international community.
Right, because elevated insurance premiums on those container ships directly dictate the price of fuel in your car and the cost of goods delivered to your door.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Iran appears to be operating a flawless strategy of compartmentalization.
How so?
Well, they are prioritizing diplomatic sanctions relief at the nation-state level with the United States and Switzerland, while simultaneously keeping their non-state proxy network like the Houthis fully armed and aggressive in the Red Sea.
I see.
They are sitting at a polished negotiating table while their allies are in speedboats attacking container ships.
It acts exactly like a corporate holding company shielding the parent corporation from the liabilities of its volatile subsidiaries. Yeah. Tehran tells the international community that the actions of the Houthis or Hezbollah are separate from their nuclear and sanctions negotiations. This mechanism allows Iran to apply massive global economic pressure without inviting a direct, regime-ending war on its own soil.
But while Iran uses geographic distance and proxy militias to insulate itself, the State of Israel is fighting those exact same proxies directly on its immediate borders.
Which brings us to our third line of analysis, Israel's multi-front security challenge.
Yes. Let's look at the objective logistics regarding the Gaza Strip. Israeli forces have expanded their territorial control to nearly 70% of the Strip.
70%, that's a massive footprint.
It is. And this military advance violates the terms of an October 2025 ceasefire agreement. The second phase of that truce, which was Hamas disarmament and an Israeli withdrawal, is entirely stalled.
Well, the reason it is stalled is rooted in the physical reality of that 70% figure. Holding 70% of Gaza is not merely about seizing real estate. It is about controlling the logistical seams.
The transit corridors.
Exactly. The major transit corridors and crossroads. By holding these lines, Israeli forces physically bisect the Strip, preventing the movement of arms and personnel between isolated pockets of Hamas fighters.
But according to Stylo Intel Ops estimates, the probability that Hamas will voluntarily disarm under these conditions is assessed as highly unlikely.
Highly unlikely.
Right. Without a viable political alternative or a physical security guarantee, there is zero strategic incentive for a militant group to hand over its only leverage.
Exactly. And, Gaza is only the southern front. We must examine the northern front, involving Hezbollah and Lebanon. Despite the broader U.S. Iran MOU designed to lower regional temperatures, Israel has continued aggressive airstrikes in southern Lebanon.
Specifically targeting Hezbollah assets in areas like Nabatia al-Foka and Ansariya.
Yes. And the human and economic mechanics of this northern conflict are staggering. Since March 2026, the fighting has resulted in 3,783 deaths and 11,699 injuries. Furthermore, 1.2 million people have been displaced from their homes. And to put the economic devastation into perspective, the Lebanese economy is expected to contract by 7% this year alone.
7%. That kind of contraction doesn't just mean a recession. It means the wholesale evaporation of the middle class and the collapse of municipal services.
It does. And the sheer scale of the collateral damage is tied to how Hezbollah operates. Nabatia al-Faka isn't a traditional open battlefield. Hezbollah's military doctrine relies on decentralizing weapon caches and command nodes deep within civilian infrastructure.
Right, embedding them.
Yes. When you embed military assets into residential grids, high collateral strikes become an inevitable reality of the conflict.
And this multi-front military reality is creating intense diplomatic friction. Let's look at how global decision-makers are reacting. President Trump issued a rare, highly public rebuke of Israel's military tactics in Lebanon.
He specifically criticized the destruction of entire apartment buildings, didn't he?
Yes, he did. And the mechanism of his frustration is clear. These high collateral strikes are actively undermining the political capital he needs to finalize the Iran peace deal.
Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's perspective is rooted entirely in immediate border security. He insists on maintaining strict security buffer zones and neutralizing Hezbollah and Hamas capabilities.
Which is tied to his domestic situation.
Exactly. This hardline stance is inseparable from his domestic reality. He is facing severe political pressure and ongoing corruption charges at home, making his political survival deeply tied to his military outcomes.
We also have the perspective of regional neighbors. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, speaking at the G7 summit in Evian, urgently called for a halt to Israel's Gaza operations.
Right, because Egypt is looking at the risk of broader destabilization spilling over its own borders.
Yes, which is why el-Sisi is actively pushing for a return to a two-state solution framework. But looking at Israel's stated course of action, I have to ask about the geopolitical math here. Israel's strategy is protecting its population through overwhelming military control.
Right.
But if achieving total tactical control of the ground fractures their international backing to the point of drawing public rebukes from an allied U.S. president, doesn't the tactical victory become a strategic liability? It is like successfully treating the symptoms of a disease, but making the patient permanently allergic to the only known cure.
That's a compelling point. If we connect this to the bigger picture, we can look to the recent analysis by Thomas Friedman, who noted that in this current strategic landscape, everybody is a loser.
Everybody is a loser.
Yeah. Tactical military victories in Gaza or southern Lebanon do not automatically translate into long-term strategic security. If the resulting diplomatic isolation leaves a nation vulnerable on the global stage, the foundation of its security is fundamentally weakened.
So we've looked at the military hardware and the diplomatic papers. We now need to examine the human element, how the global public is reacting, and what you should be watching for next. To do this, we turn to the Stylo News AI sentiment analysis,
which processes massive amounts of social media intelligence, primarily from the platform X.
Right. And it is important to explain how this technology functions. An OSINT, or Open Source Intelligence Vector AI engine, does not simply count angry emojis or flag keywords.
No, it's much more sophisticated than that.
It parses syntax, local slang, and contextual sentiment across more than 20 languages in real time. It vectors semantic relationships to differentiate between the artificial amplification of state-sponsored bot farms and the genuine shifts in public morale.
And the genuine sentiment data coming out of these regions is incredibly revealing. Let's start with Iran. The AI analysis reveals a pervasive, deep-seated distrust of the IRGC among the Iranian public.
That's significant.
It is. There is extreme skepticism that any MOU signed in Switzerland will hold. Users view the regime as inflexible, highly unreliable, and prone to prioritizing regional military posturing over domestic economic stability.
Moving to Lebanon, the sentiment data shows severe systemic fatigue. The Lebanese public is exhausted by the violence.
Understandably.
Yeah. Notably, polls and social media posts are showing a significant shift in sentiment that actually favors political engagement with Israel over continued submission to Hezbollah's military dominance. A growing portion of the public is openly viewing Hezbollah not as a protector, but as a destabilizing force destroying their country from the inside.
Finally, regarding Israel, the social media sentiment is intensely polarized. There is strong defensive support for Israel's fundamental right to intercept incoming rockets and secure its borders.
But that clashes with the other side.
Exactly. It fiercely clashes with heavy, sustained criticism over the high rates of civilian casualties, the destruction of civilian infrastructure, and the continuous violations of previous ceasefire agreements.
With those public sentiments mapped out, there are 3 major milestones you must watch for in the coming weeks. The first is June 19th, 2026.
The scheduled signing of the U.S. Iran peace deal in Switzerland.
Right. Will the ink actually dry, or will a rogue retaliatory strike derail the agreement at the final hour?
The second milestone is the Israeli elections, scheduled to take place by October 2026. This will serve as the ultimate stress test for Prime Minister Netanyahu's hardline military policies as he faces a deeply polarized electorate and significant voter fury over the handling of the multi-front war.
And the third area to monitor is the maritime choke points, specifically the Bab al-Mandeb Strait and the Strait of Hormuz.
Right.
These are the flashpoints where localized proxy actions could trigger a rapid global economic escalation overnight.
This raises an important question, though. Can paper treaties signed by nation-states in European capitals actually disarm deeply entrenched, ideologically driven proxy militias operating in the deserts of Yemen and the hills of Lebanon?
So, what does this all mean? When we synthesize these 3 lines of analysis, the conclusion is that the Middle East currently exists in a highly unstable de-escalation window. There is a fragile diplomatic framework being built, but the ground beneath it is constantly shifting.
Constantly.
One miscalculation in the Strait of Hormuz, one rogue drone strike, or one breakdown in border security could completely shatter this delicate attempt at peace.
It is a landscape entirely defined by contradictions, pursuing peace at the negotiating table while actively preparing for war on the ground.
Well, that concludes the formal intelligence brief for today's deep dive. For those of you who need to track these exact events and monitor the shifting global landscape in real time, Stylo News is the tool designed for you.
Right. It is a mobile and computer application that allows individuals to customize their own personal intelligence-style briefs.
The platform aggregates and analyzes data from over 250 traditional news sources and social media platforms like X, providing real-time, translated insights powered by the OSINT vector AI engine we utilize today.
And there are customized plans available, such as the Executive Monthly for $19.99, which allows you to get these high-level, military-grade insights on demand.
To subscribe and take control of your intelligence feed, visit www.stylonews.com.
Check it out.
And on a more personal note, stepping away from the formal anchor desk for a moment, I just want to warmly thank you for tuning in and navigating this with us today.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
This is incredibly dense material, you know. But understanding the actual mechanics of these geopolitical webs is so vital to making sense of the world right now.
It truly is. Untangling these complex events requires careful, objective analysis, and we really appreciate you joining us for the process.
We'd love to hear from you. Please reach out and request topics for future deep dives, and make sure to follow Stylo News on all your favorite social media platforms. We love digging into the research you want to hear about.
Absolutely. And as we sign off, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We spent a lot of time today discussing the impending peace deal in Switzerland. But if non-state actors like Hamas and the Houthis have the capability to operate entirely independently of their state sponsors' diplomatic agreements, is the era of the nation-state peace treaty obsolete for resolving modern Middle Eastern conflicts?
Definitely something to think about.
Yeah.
Till next time.